Welcome to another edition of Why Come Japan. I'm your host, Mr. Radri, where I interview creatives about their craft and how it relates to Japan. And today on my show is Julian Domanski, creator of the YouTube channel Kantan Japan and co-collaborator of Ryu Tokyo. On today's show, we talk about how both Julian and his partner Yasuhiro Matsuno created their own weekly news podcast, This Week in Japan. How the vision for their brand of Ryu Tokyo is to become the next Gaijin Pot, why having a Japanese co-host helps their podcast grow, how Julian works as both a guitar teacher and freelance videographer, and the advice both Julian and I got from Chris Broad, creator of the Broad in Japan YouTube channel. So you were saying before we started the interview that you were a videographer? Do you do that full time, or is it just like a hobby or something, or part-time work?
Almost full time, yeah.
Really?
I mean, I actually went freelance quite recently. So I'm still doing a part-time job. I actually teach guitar in like a music school. So that was like my job when I first came to Japan, just doing that, which is fine. It's not a bad job, but it's not my passion in life.
Wait. Music's your passion in life? I mean, you're not doing anything with music though, right?
No, because it doesn't pay any money. That's the problem.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And
especially right now.
Yeah, I'm a bit all over the place. I studied music at college and university, so I have a degree in music performance. But then when I finished university, I realized that unless you're literally like super famous, music doesn't really pay much. So I kind of studied again and retrained as an engineer. I was doing like electronic design, I guess you could call it.
Right.
And then up until I came to Japan, that's what I was doing in England.
Right.
And that job was okay. It was kind of another creative role. But then when I moved to Japan, I just heard, all these horror stories about like, the salary man and working for Japanese companies, radio aerobics and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't want to be an engineer in Japan. It sounds terrible. So, I kind of found a job as a guitar teacher. So I ended up going back to what I was already good at. It kind of worked out, really.
Was guitar one of the primary reasons of what brought you to Japan? Or what in particular interested you about the country in general?
Well, I mean, the reason I came was my wife. She's from Fukuoka.
Okay.
I met her in England. She lived in London for a year and a half. And then we got engaged and just decided that we'd move to Japan. But I mean, from a long time ago, I already had an interest in the culture, I would say. Mainly from video games, because I'm a bit of a nerd, if you hadn't already guessed.
I think it was the tattoos that gave it away. No, I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. These are video game tattoos, by the way.
Are they?
I have like...
What are they?
This is a Super Metroid on my arm.
Is it?
And
okay.
I've got a Mario Kart tattoo on my leg. And some other ones. Yeah, I'm quite lame.
Huh. I don't know what kind of video game I would get tattooed on me, because I barely like the shirts I wear. It's like I don't think I would ever get anything tattooed. I would just hate it immediately. Like,
you have to like settle on the idea for quite a long time. I think that's what I did anyway. I decided what I wanted, and then I didn't actually get it done for maybe a year.
Okay.
Just to really like make sure that I wanted to get it done.
Huh. I want to talk about what work it is you do with Ryu Tokyo. And I want to talk about the founder, Yasuhiro Matsuno. Can you tell me a bit about who he is and what the partnership is between the two of you?
He's kind of, I guess, like an entrepreneur, really. So he has a couple of businesses and stuff. And we kind of teamed up so that I kind of do a lot of the creative stuff for the channel. Like I film the videos, edit them. I also edit the podcast. I do some of the artwork and stuff, like thumbnails and all that kind of stuff. But he also has a lot of input. So we talk quite a lot. Like we have like a Slack channel. So we're always kind of like discussing what to do next and stuff. So there's a lot of collaboration that goes there. But I guess technically Ryu Tokyo is completely his kind of in terms of ownership. But yeah, the podcast was kind of interesting because I started working with him just recently before we started it. And then he came to me one day and was like, I've had an idea about starting a podcast. But his original idea was asking me to do it on my own as like a solo podcast.
Okay.
And he said he wanted to do like weekly news. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, at the start. And I'd always thought about doing a podcast on my channel. kind of about the same thing. Not so much weekly news, but like current news events. So when he recommended it to me, like it sounded like a good idea. But I said to him, like, I don't know how interesting it will be if it's just what one person reading the news, because I've heard those kind of podcasts before, and they tend to be pretty bland, because it's just like someone saying what happened that week. Do you know what I mean?
I quite like the way the show is structured, personally. I mean, I know you're not like a stand-up comedian. I think what makes Japan by River Cruise, why I put it in my number one is because they're both comedians. And I guess, like when you're watching or listening to a podcast, you want to be entertained, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't even pretend that I'm a comedian, but I don't know. We try and have like a more of a casual conversation about the news, right? So we try and keep it lighthearted. We try and keep it neutral. But we try and make some jokes in there as well, and just laugh about stupid things. Like in this week's episode, we have the last story was about Tsubroku, the haircut that was like banned in schools because it's apparently it's prone to accidents and trouble, which is basically it's like like it's got like an undercut, so you have like a shaved side, long top, and this Tokyo school had banned it apparently because boys might get into accidents, which is just a ridiculous story. I don't know. So we like to have some kind of light-hearted stuff, but we'll also talk about the big stuff, like I don't know, people passing away or like kind of affair scandals and anything really, whatever's trending that week, I guess.
Actually, I mean, if I had to redo my top 5 podcasts again, I would actually put yours on there because, and I'm not saying that just to bolster your ego. I'm saying that because I learned about news that I didn't even know that happened in Japan, and I'm very thankful that I learned some of it. Like the one about the politicians. Like I've never heard the name Teruki Goto until actually listening to your podcast.
Yeah, that guy is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I mean, actually, again, I feel like I can't really take credit for a lot of this stuff because, I mean, I go on the episode, I record and I edit and stuff, and we all discuss the kind of topics that will be on the week's show, but as well as Yasu kind of giving us a lot of insight, kind of we make like a script beforehand. We've also got another guy called Christian who actually lives in Aichi. And he works as like a translator for like a car company or something. So he like translates like manuals and things like that. But he actually does a lot of the research for the show.
Oh, really?
So I've got to say a big shout out to Christian because me and mostly Yasu, but me and Yasu kind of give him topics and say like, maybe this would be good to talk about. And then once we've decided like the top 5 topics, he will write most of the article. So if you go on to the Ryu Tokyo website, there's actually like a written article for the podcast as well, but it's basically just the news, and then we discuss that article basically. So if you listen to the podcast, there's always a section between each story where I'm reading the story, but basically I'm just reading the article that is on the website. So that gives us like a more structured, delivery of information, just like a minute of me just reading the dialogue. And then we actually discuss it and talk about the interesting points and stuff.
Well, that's the podcast, right? When you talk about the interesting parts.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah. But we still kind of basically reading the article. We use it as a script to get through the podcast because it helps keep it structured, I think.
How do you decide, like, okay, this is the story I want to talk about. This one's not so good. There's not much to say. Is it just based upon, like, I guess what I'm just saying now? Do you have a lot to say about it or not, or nothing? Is that usually what makes it the top 5?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like every week, we've got 5 stories. We try and keep them varied because we don't want to have like 5 stories about someone dying because that's just nobody wants to listen to that, right? As much as we want to deliver for the news, we want to keep it entertaining,
Yeah.
So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that almost like if you did do a podcast where it's just about somebody dying, that's almost like it seems like it's in bad taste.
It isn't it? It's a bit too much. But I mean, I don't think it would ever happen. But it's rare that kind of things happen. So, like, I mean,
yeah,
there was nothing super bad this week. But last week we talked about the flooding in Kyushu.
Right.
60 people passing away. A couple of weeks ago we had a Hana Kimura she committed suicide, and that was quite a big story.
Right.
But that also highlighted like online bullying and that kind of stuff. But what we try and do is like we take like the most talked about story, I guess. So we mainly check things like Twitter, because that's where a lot of Japanese people vocalize their opinions. So we use that as a gauge for like what people are talking about, what hashtags are trending, and then we'll just use that to try and judge the order of the news stories. So we always start with what we think is the most important one of the week, and then we kind of go backwards from there. And then we end the show with the word of the week, which is just a bit more of a, there's nothing to do with the news, but we might use a word that is perhaps like related to a story that week, and that's just a bit more fun, because Yasu, obviously, with him being Japanese, he knows all these really like quirky slang words, or like the wase ego, which are kind of like katakana-sized English words. And I'd say like, I don't know, 2 times out of 10, I actually have heard the word before. So, but usually I haven't heard the phrase.
Right.
So he tells me, and I try and guess what it is, and then we kind of discuss usage for it and stuff. But I always enjoy that part of the show quite a lot, because I personally learn something new, but I think it's interesting for the listeners as well.
So basically, what I understand is that so you gather all this information. Is it a real struggle to put all this together before Saturday when you record?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, because it's a team effort, right? So for Christian, he has to get it written. I mean, the stories are happening throughout the week, but he has to basically have the script written by Thursday evening. But I mean, he could tweak it in the morning on Friday. But I meet up with Yasu on Friday mornings usually. We record the podcast, and then I just get it edited by Saturday night, and then we release it. So yeah, we're all just like busy, like rushing around trying to get it done. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like at the moment it still feels worth it. Like every time I finish the episode, we're all usually in agreement. It sounds good. We actually record for about an hour and a half every time, but we just cut it down to the more important stuff. Or I don't know, because it's the news, we have to try and be a bit sensitive. So we might start with the story, and then because of me and Yasu, we might just be joking around about something. But then when you listen back at it, it might sound a bit rude to somebody, or a bit offensive, or we might bring up something kind of unintentionally. I think one week, like I compared Japan to South Korea for some reason, and he was like, "Yeah, we shouldn't put that in there because that would just get people riled up." And I was like, "Yeah, that's fair enough." I think we were talking about the response to COVID actually. I mentioned how kind of on the ball South Korea seemed to be at the start of the pandemic, and Japan were being quite lax. But with the history between the two countries, we decided it was probably best not to mention that in the podcast, whether or not it was true or not. So we try and keep it pretty biased, pretty unbiased, should I say, and neutral.
How has the reception been for the podcast recently? Because I know you it's just 15 episodes and you do one every week, so
yeah,
it's rather new.
Yeah, I mean, pretty good so far. I mean, except for yourself. The only people that have really give me feedback are just like my relatives, my friends. We haven't really had any comments coming in from like, no comments coming in from like random people. But I share the podcast on like my Kantan Japan channel, Facebook page, and stuff like that. And people leave comments, not so much being like, "Oh, we love the podcast," but they'll kind of talk about the topics of the week. So people love to get political on Facebook. So there's always some, there's always someone in the comments trying to start an argument. But that's kind of the point, it's just to make people aware of what's happening in the country, get people talking, and share some of the stories that people don't know about. Like you say, right? You weren't aware of some of these things that we've brought up before.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great resource, really, because I listen to a lot of podcasts that that are from America, and I'm only learning about news stories and the reactions to news stories based on what they say. But it's just sort of like there's no like real resource for Japanese news that like I can kind of like, because I mean with the news, or at least what I understand is that you have your own way of interpreting it, and everybody has an interpretation of it is different. So it's nice to get like a collection of like a bunch of other opinions.
It's the kind of the classic like the social media bubble, right? It's like you follow certain pages on Facebook, so the algorithm only shows you things related to that, right? So it's just like what's that called, like confirmation bias. It like reinforces what you already believe.
Yeah,
So
it's
like
annoying.
yeah, I think yeah, definitely. I mean, we're all susceptible to it, but I think yeah, it's good to try and diversify your input of like news sources. Um, yeah, but one of the things we were trying to do with this podcast was that basically there's so many podcasts where people talk about things happening in Japan, but none of them are Japanese. You know, I'm not Japanese. I'll admit that. It's pretty obvious, looking at me. But like one of the reasons when Yasu said to me like you should do the podcast on your own and read the stories, I said like it would be much better if we had a Japanese person. And he's a pretty smart guy, so I said to him, "How about you? You've got a good eye for like details. He likes to explain things and stuff." So yeah, that's kind of how it ended up being me and him discussing it together. And I think that gives a good balance because with news happening in Japan, it's good to have the perspective of a Japanese person and a foreigner at the same thing. Because obviously, if it's your own country, then you might feel differently about the news compared
Yeah,
to like
no, I think
someone just lives there.
it's a really good collaboration. What brought about this friendship or quote unquote partnership?
That's a good question. I actually, I don't know how long was it ago. It wasn't that long ago, like 4 or 5 months ago. I basically started going into like freelance work, unintentionally right at the start of the pandemic. So I was like, what the hell have I just done? I kind of just gave up a full-time position at my job. I was like, it's all right, everything will be fine. And then I was basically signed up to Upwork, like the freelance platform.
Okay.
And basically just scouting for like video jobs and stuff. But I also thought like I'd take a punt at like trying to do some writing because I do like a script writing for my videos and stuff. So I thought maybe like writing for a travel vlog or something like that, or a travel blog, sorry. And basically, yeah, like he just recently started his Ryu Tokyo website and he was looking for freelance writers on there. So I messaged him and I said, I've got a YouTube channel. I do things about travel and stuff,
Huh. So it was just basically like looking for work, huh?
But basically, yeah, so if you go on the website, I don't actually have many because I did like 3 articles and then we kind of just started doing all this other stuff. So I just don't have time to do that anymore. But yeah, once I met him in person, we did a shoot. He's got another company called Zumo, which is kind of like a tour company. It's quite new, so they haven't really launched properly yet. But they were shooting like a commercial for that, and he said like, "Do you want to be an extra in it?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So I went down. We went for like a fake tour around Saxa.
Yeah.
And the video guy for that, he was just filming us enjoying the tour and stuff. And then like kind of talking to him that day, and I said to him like, like I do like videography work as well. So like if you ever like need an extra camera or something like that, just let me know. And then it kind of went from there really. I think that the podcast idea actually came up first, and then we kind of played around with the idea of recording the episodes and putting them online, which we did twice. Recording the video, should have said that. Recording the video and putting it on YouTube, which we did twice, but we don't have like a permanent setup, so like we decided to scrap that for the moment. And then yeah, he's kind of turned on to building the YouTube platform. Mm-hmm. So him not being a videographer or anything like that, he needed help doing that stuff. So yeah, we kind of did a couple of videos, and then now it's turned into like basically just like for me like a full-time thing really. So we're aiming to put new videos out every week. And yeah, I guess from his point of view as like a businessman really, the idea is to build the brand as a platform, the website, the podcast, the YouTube channel, and yeah, that's kind of it really, I think.
Okay, so basically you just kind of got lucky when, quitting your other jobs and then just looking for freelance stuff,
yeah.
Videography, and I don't think I was as brave as you were, because there wasn't that much out there and I needed to support myself. I didn't have any financial backing.
I mean, it was a bit lucky, but I mean, at the same time, like I feel like I've been lucky too many times in my life to call it luck. I feel like sometimes you just have to, like, if you decide you want to do something, you just got to go for it. I don't mean to sound like an after-school special. It sounds a bit cheesy, but like, for me, it's kind of true. I just thought, I don't want to do this job forever. And mainly, my main motivator was money. I'm 30 years old, right? So I just moved to Japan 2 years ago, so that kind of destroyed my savings. So I'm building it back from zero. And me and my wife talking, like not in the immediate future, but maybe not the next 4 or 5 years. We'll probably have a kid. So like we need money, right? I don't want to live in like a 1 LDK for the rest of my life. It's just like I want a proper apartment. I want a proper.
That's what this is, guys. 1 LDK. That motorcycle you just heard a second ago. Yeah. 1 LDK sounds.
I won't show you what's behind this door. Let's keep that. Let's keep that hidden.
Right.
But that was kind of my motivator, really. So I'm still, I'm still living the LDK life. Don't get me wrong. But it was just a way to move forward in like my career, basically, whilst enjoying what I do.
Right. Okay, so paint me kind of a picture of like what a normal week looks like for you. Is it like basically is it kind of like you work for hire kind of situation?
At the moment, yeah, I'm freelance, but basically like all my freelance time is with Ryu Tokyo.
Oh, really?
Because doing one episode of the podcast every week, doing one video, and possibly doing 2 a week in the future. Basically 1 day a week we record. We film somewhere. So this week, I tend to be so busy, I forget what I did like a few days ago. What did we do this week? This week we went to Skytree. We went to the
right. I saw that video.
Skytree in Midgar. Yeah, we did that.
That was Tokyo Tower. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's the other tall building.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they had this Final Fantasy VII remake event there. So we went there. We also before that in the day we were in Osaka doing some other filming. So we filmed that 1 day a week, and then I spent like 2 days at home just editing videos, and then another day just doing other random stuff. I work at a guitar school 3 days a week. Basically don't have a day off at the moment. So it's kind of like destroying my my will to live in a good way.
So I want to talk a little bit about Ryu Tokyo. It's brand new, and I know like I want to talk a little bit about what the goal is for this show, because I know it's just starting out, and it's not like it's up there with like abroad Japan level numbers in terms of like views or subscriptions. Like, what's the like overall projection for the quote unquote brand?
I guess Yasu would probably be the better person to ask this, because I'm sure he thinks about this probably a lot more than me. But from my experience, like being on social media, it's kind of hard to judge, where it'll go, because like things seem so random sometimes. Some channels just blow up all of a sudden. Some take ages to build up.
Right.
But we're hoping that kind of like, with the YouTube channel, for example, like with me being like the creative, like the videographer, the editor, and both me and Yasu being in the videos, but him being more of like a businessman, hopefully together we can actually kind of engineer that into something more feasible. Right. So, producing content every week is kind of part of it, keeping it more up to date. And I guess trying to stay more like current topics. So the YouTube channels are not necessarily news, but, we're going to be doing stuff like street interviews. We've got a few videos like that already, but also like, we'll just go to like Skytree or something like that. So it's kind of a big mix of content.
Right.
It's just a lot of everything basically. But I think his vision for it is for the platform of Ryu Tokyo is just to be everything Japan related. From what I understand, it's basically to become something like Gaijin Pot. But,
oh, really?
But not as corporate, because it's a bit stuffy, I think, Gaijin Pot sometimes.
They don't even have pot. That's what I always make these jokes about. Like, how can you make a what is it? A forum, like when you're talking about marijuana when it's illegal in the country.
Yeah.
I know it's supposed to be about melting pot, but
yeah. Like I do like the guys I've actually worked with them. I did a couple of videos with them last year, as a freelance project. But I think they're, if I observe their content as an outsider, or just like a random person that doesn't know their image, they do seem a bit like, like corporate, So like it feels like there's a company behind their content, and there's always kind of something to be promoted or whatever. So we're trying to avoid that. So that was one of the main reasons that Yasu was really pushing for us both to be on camera quite a lot of the time. to like set ourselves up.
Adds like a personality to it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like because like that's how people get invested in channels, right? Because I know that all the YouTube channels I'm subscribed to, I'm subscribed to them because I like the person who presents. You know, there's loads of channels I like because of their content, but I don't really like the person, so I just don't end up subscribing to them. It's usually like I've got to be able to sit there and watch that person.
I want some names. Who are you talking about, Julian?
None. There are none. I redact that last statement.
You heard it here, folks. Is your goal to kind of make like abroad in Japan type videos where you go places and do kind of like, I guess what his last couple of videos, well, not last couple, like he did one where like the street racing with like drifting, and that was very much like an episode of Top Gear. Are you looking to like do stuff like that?
That would be cool, yeah. I mean, that might be something more that we do on the Ryu Tokyo channel, just because we have the budget for it. Because basically Yasu funds the channel, so and because he has the Ryu Tokyo company, we have more of budget to actually make content, you know, on a larger scale, basically. So Kantan Japan is completely my own thing, so everything I do is, you know, a cost to me. But yeah, with Ryu Tokyo, we're really trying to treat it more like a business. But yeah, I think maybe making some more, not big budget, but grander in terms of like ideas, you know, trying to make stuff a bit bigger, you know. We see a lot of articles online. Like a recent example would be, you know, they're doing that go-to travel campaign.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you talked about that in your last podcast.
Yeah, right. But weeks before this, actually, like there was just a rumor that like something like this might happen, and then I just saw loads of like international media outlets saying like, "Oh, Japan will now pay you money to fly to Japan and do all this stuff," and like someone just picked it up and it just exploded on the internet, and like people like in Australia and America and England were like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go to like Japan, half price tickets," but like no one actually bothered to actually read the original Japanese article and look at what it was actually explaining, right? So it's kind of stupid, you know. And there was another one about like you know, they're trying to get people to move out of the city to kind of repopulate some of the like the countryside towns, right?
Yeah.
So they're doing things like you know, giving away houses for like super cheap. They have these like akiya, which are like abandoned houses. Basically, people pass away and just leave the house behind. So basically the local province government takes the house and then they sell it for super cheap. But like those schemes are only available to not Japanese, like Japanese residents, so foreigners as well. But you have to live here and, you know, do all the application process. But then online media were just like, Japan is giving away houses. Like it's just like so sensational when they just put this stupid headline. And I think that happens too much because people aren't checking the actual source material. So that's,
that's the worst thing about the world we live in today. Is that well, because I did an interview with Chris Broad, and post interview he was shooting me up in the DMs in Twitter, and he's like, "You gotta work on your titles, man. You gotta work on those thumbnails," and I'm like, "Okay, I can do that." And he says, "I know, like maybe you hate clickbait, but you got to be able to sell the video, right? You got to get people to click on it." And I'm thinking like, well, you know, I hate how clickbait, the world we live in today, that, you know, we have things repurposed just to get us to click on them. But I feel like that's kind of Even
if you've got valid content, you need to make it clickable. So like technically everything is clickbait now. I think that word or that phrase has lost all meaning. Because clickbait used to be very obvious and it was like, that's definitely clickbait. But like every video on my feed, if I go onto my subscriptions list on YouTube, everything looks like clickbait.
Yeah.
But it's all like, you know, it's all valid. You know, I click on it and, you know, they show me exactly what they showed in the thumbnail.
Wait, is it all valid? Do you really feel like it's valid?
Well, on my subscriptions mostly.
Oh, you mean your subscriptions? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm talking about like the news here.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of like you say, like I've met Chris a couple of times, and
oh really?
He kind of gave me the same advice actually.
Did he?
Saying like, you know, because I mean, I wasn't really saying like, you know, help me with my channel or anything like that. But I just said like,
Oh no. When he told me that, he was very nice about it. I'm not trying to like
yeah.
paint him as the bad guy or anything.
Oh no, yeah, I know what you mean. But I just said like, as an outside observer, like, what's your initial impression of my channel when you go on it? And he said like, the content was generally good, but it was just like remember the branding. This was a little bit a while ago, so like I hadn't like really sorted out like the images and stuff. So I think like my thumbnails and everything kind of has like a theme to it now. But one thing he mentioned was what you mentioned was the titles. So you'll notice actually if you go on his channel, because he told me like, put numbers in the title, like 24 hours in Sapporo or like top 5 something in somewhere. Right. And if you go on his channel, actually, like I noticed after he told me this, that most of his videos have a number in the title.
Interesting. Actually, no, you didn't tell me that, but okay.
Because I think what he meant by that was that like the psychology of people when they see like a number, they like want to know what they all are. If you know what I mean, like top 5 is like, oh, I need to find out every single one. But if you just say like cool places in Japan, people are like, okay, cool places, whatever. If you say top 5 cool places, then you need to know like what are they, which ones are the best. I don't know if that's the kind of the psychology behind it, but I mean that's the
what one thing I learned from Julian in this podcast.
yeah. Well, that's from Chris. You gotta give him that credit. I can't take his advice, but
no, it makes a lot of sense. You do see a lot of numbers and titles nowadays. All right then. Anything you want to say before we go?
Subscribe to my channel because I have to pimp myself out, obviously.
Yeah, I'll pimp you out because I think your content needs to be seen.
Thank you.
If you're looking for a podcast where you want to learn more about Japanese news and you want to have like kind of I'd say a light conversation between Julian and Nobumatsu. What's his last name? No.
Yasuharu
Matsuno. Excuse me. Where did I get that name from? They do a podcast called This Week in Japan, and you can find it on iTunes. Is it just on iTunes?
Just every podcast platform, basically.
Like Google
Podcasts. It's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Heart FM, Pocket Cast, all those things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can find them there. Let's see. I guess anything else? Yeah, you can check out his YouTube channel, Kantan Japan. You post there quite often, right?
I try to. My minimum is once a month. I posted a new video yesterday, and it was 6 weeks since the last one, so I'm a bit behind schedule. But that's due to the Ryu Tokyo stuff. Just kind of being busy with that.
Okay. Yeah, so check those out if you want to learn more about Japan. And so, until then, I always end with until then. I guess I got to tell people what's coming up next. Next week, I guess, will be another solo episode. Still trying to work out guests, because if you ever do podcasts where you have interviewees, scheduling isn't always as easy as you think it'd be. I don't know how Japan by River Cruise does it. I'm not sure how they always get guests. I wouldn't be surprised if they have like a couple of episodes where they have no guest. But
yeah. I mean, that's actually why we tried to avoid it. It wasn't an initial idea on This Week in Japan. We thought, having topical guests related to the topics, but we thought, oh no, you got to arrange the interviews and get them on the call, and it's just a whole thing. So we kind of scrapped that idea.
Right. I may talk about being quarter Japanese. Maybe that'll be the thing. I
would like to hear more about that. So, yeah,
would you? Okay. All right. I'll put.
I'll tune in for that one.
That's a number I could put in the title. Being 25% Japanese.
Yeah. Top 10 reasons I'm half Japanese, quarter Japanese.
Yeah, top 10 reasons. Top 10 reasons why you're not quarter Japanese.
Perfect. That's it. And then just like a thumbnail, with a shocked face.
Is that what you do? In all seriousness?
Yeah.
Really?
No, of course not. That's like the YouTube face, right? Just like complete disbelief. Because if you just look normal, then people don't click on it. That's the clickbaity face. But I can't. I do it sometimes, but it's kind of cringy. I hate doing it.
So I got to work on my clickbait face. Got it.
That's it. Yeah, the click face.
Yeah. I can't argue with the advice from the great Chris Broad.
That's it, man. Yeah.
Well, does he do clickbait faces? I have to look through his.
Oh, come on! Yeah, you kidding me? Like, look at your last few videos. There's like I don't know. Just go on his channel real quick.
All right, I'll check it out right now. I can't even spell his name right. Yeah, no, those are definitely clickbait faces. All right,
Yeah.
okay, I can do that. Maybe I'll overdo it because I like to overdo it.
Even the greats, man. Even the greats have to stoop to that level, so don't worry about it.
All right, okay, all right. The things I do for attention and love.
That's it, man.
All right, so until then, I'm Radri and
Julian as Kantan, Japan.
And hey, Julian.
Hey.
Jesus, man.